You take your first breath at 20,000 feet, and it nearly kills you. The air is so thin up here that your lungs burn like you just inhaled a campfire. The wind is screaming at 60 miles an hour, and the temperature is somewhere between absolutely not and instant frostbite. Welcome to the Himalayas, the roof of the world, and your permanent address. You're a Yeti, a creature so elusive that most of humanity is pretty sure you don't exist. And honestly, looking around at the frozen hellscape you've been born into, you kind of wish they were right. Your mother is enormous. She stands about 8 feet tall, covered head to toe in thick, matted brown fur that reeks of wet dog mixed with something deeply unpleasant. Think gym locker room meets dumpster behind a seafood restaurant. That smell? That's you now too. Get used to it. She's shoved you out in some shallow cave tucked into a cliff face, the wind howling past the entrance like nature's angry alarm clock. There's no celebration, no tender moment. She sniffs you once, nudges you toward the back of the cave, and that's about as maternal as it gets. You're on the Yeti parenting plan, which is basically don't die, figure it out. For the first few weeks, you cling to your mother like a furry backpack. She's your only source of warmth, food, and protection, and she tolerates you the way a tired parent tolerates a toddler at a grocery store. Barely. You drink, you sleep, you shiver. That's the whole routine. Outside the cave, the world is a blinding white nightmare of ice and rock. Nothing grows here. Nothing should live here. And yet, here you are, a baby cryptid freezing your tail off at an altitude where most humans need supplemental oxygen just to stand up. By the time you're a few months old, your mother starts dragging you on trips down the mountain. Not because she wants to bond, but because she needs to eat, and she can't exactly leave you alone with the snow leopards. You descend into the alpine forests below the snow line, where the trees are twisted and ancient, and the ground actually has things growing on it. This is where the food is. Roots, tubers, berries when they're in season, the occasional pika or marmot that's too slow to dodge your mother's surprisingly quick hands. You watch her dig through frozen ground like she's mining for gold, except the gold is a half-rotten turnip, and she eats it like it's a 5-star meal. Life goals. You start foraging on your own pretty quickly because, well, nobody's gonna do it for you. Your diet reads like the menu at the world's worst restaurant. Moss? Sure. Lichen scraped off a rock? Delicious. Grubs pulled from under bark? Chef's kiss. You're basically eating what a survivalist YouTuber would eat on a dare, except this is every meal of every day for the rest of your life. Occasionally you get lucky and stumble on a bird's nest with eggs in it, and that's basically your birthday and Christmas combined. By your first year, your mother has had enough of you. One morning she just walks away. No goodbye, no heartfelt farewell, no, I'll call you. She vanishes into the mist like a furry ghost, and you're standing there, maybe 3 feet tall, looking around at the endless frozen wilderness thinking, cool, so this is what abandonment feels like at 12,000 feet. From this point on, every decision you make is the difference between eating and starving, between shelter and exposure, between life and becoming a frozen popsicle that some mountaineer finds in 300 years and calls evidence. You grow fast, though. By age 3, you're pushing 5 feet and strong enough to flip rocks the size of suitcases looking for insects and rodents underneath. Your fur thickens into a dense, shaggy coat that makes you look like a walking carpet, but it keeps you alive when the temperature drops to 40 below. You've learned to read the mountain. You know which slopes are about to avalanche by the way the snow settles. You know where the marmots burrow by the subtle mounds near flat rocks. You can smell a storm coming 2 hours before it hits. You're becoming what the Sherpa people have feared for centuries. The Yeti, the rock animal, the thing that moves through these mountains like it owns them. Because you do, but here's the problem nobody warns you about. You are profoundly, catastrophically alone. Yetis don't do herds. They don't do packs. They don't do neighborhoods or book clubs or casual Friday hangouts. You are a solitary creature in the most isolated landscape on Earth. And your nearest neighbor, another Yeti, might be 50 miles away across terrain that would kill a human in hours. Your social life makes a lighthouse keeper look like a party animal. Days pass without you hearing anything except wind and your own breathing. Weeks go by, months. The silence is so complete that when you finally hear another living creature, it's usually because something is about to try to eat you, or you're about to try to eat it. And speaking of things trying to eat you, let's talk about snow leopards. These cats are basically the assassins of the Himalayas. Silent, fast, perfectly camouflaged, and equipped with jaws that can crush bone. They usually go after blue sheep and ibex, but a young Yeti? That's just an oversized opportunity. You've already had 2 close calls by age 4, and both times you survived only because you're bigger, louder, and willing to throw rocks with alarming accuracy. The snow leopard slinks away. You stand there, heart pounding, realizing that even being a mythical creature doesn't make you invincible. By your 7th or 8th year, you've hit full size. 8 feet tall, maybe 400 pounds of muscle and fur and bad attitude. You can rip a small tree out of the ground. You can hurl a boulder the size of a microwave. Your hands are enormous, with an opposable thumb that lets you grip, grab, and occasionally use primitive tools. Your footprints are 13 inches long, and they're about to become more famous than you are. Because here come the humans. The first time you encounter one is probably near a yak herding camp. You've come down to the lower elevations, looking for food, maybe eyeing some livestock, and suddenly there's screaming. So much screaming. You didn't even do anything yet, you just stood there. And 3 Sherpas scattered like you detonated a bomb. Within a week, the entire village is talking about you. They call you Meadow Kongmi, the man-bear of the snow. They say seeing you is a bad omen, a sign of avalanches, storms, and death. Elders warn children to stay away from the high pastures. Monks perform rituals to ward off your presence. You literally just wanted a yak, and now you're a supernatural disaster warning. One herder in Makermo even claims you attacked her after you went after some livestock. Suddenly the whole region thinks you're a monster. You were hungry. There's a difference. Then the foreigners start showing up. Pale, overdressed humans with ridiculous amounts of equipment, trudging up the mountain specifically to find you. They examine every footprint you leave like it's a crime scene. They take photographs, collect hair samples, argue about your existence in languages you've never heard. In 1951, a guy named Eric Shipton photographs one of your footprints, and it makes international news. Your foot is suddenly more famous than most celebrities. Expeditions are launched, books are written. They even give you a new name, the Abominable Snowman. Which, by the way, is a complete mistranslation by some journalist in 1921. You're not even abominable. You're just trying to eat moss and not freeze to death. Then Edmund Hillary, the guy who climbed Everest, personally leads an expedition to prove you exist. He finds a supposed scalp of yours at a monastery, except it turns out to be from a sero, which is basically a goat. Scientists test hair samples and find bear DNA. Every single time humans get close to proving you're real, the evidence points to something else. Himalayan brown bear, Tibetan blue bear, anything but you. You're standing right there on a ridge 500 meters away, watching some guy in a puffy jacket declare you a myth on camera, and you can't even be offended because he's technically talking to a species that officially doesn't exist. The loneliness hits different as you get older. Mating season, if you can even call it that, involves wandering for weeks across impossible terrain, hoping to stumble into another Yeti who doesn't immediately try to fight you. You communicate through low whistling calls that echo across the valleys, a sound so eerie that any Sherpa who hears it immediately starts praying. And if you're lucky enough to find a mate, the whole interaction is brief, awkward, and conducted in a blizzard. Romance really isn't your strong suit when your idea of a date involves hiking 40 miles through a frozen death zone to grunt at someone for 10 minutes. If it works out, congratulations. You might have a kid you'll raise for a year before ditching it in a cave, exactly the way your mom ditched you. The cycle continues. Decades pass. You've survived avalanches, blizzards, starvation winters, snow leopard ambushes, and at least one very confused mountaineer who threw a granola bar at your face and ran. But time catches up to everyone, even legends. Your joints ache in the cold now. Your teeth are worn down from decades of chewing frozen roots. The younger Yetis can cover ground faster, reach the good foraging spots before you do. You find yourself retreating higher and higher up the mountain, into the thinner air where fewer creatures bother to go. And the real kicker? The humans are still arguing about whether you exist. You've left footprints across 4 countries, been spotted by Sherpas for centuries, have 3 different names in Tibetan alone, and the scientific consensus is that you're probably just a bear having a weird day. A bear. You're 8 feet tall with opposable thumbs and they think you're a bear. Your entire legacy comes down to blurry photographs, debunked scalps, and a cooler brand that doesn't even know you're real. At least the monks still leave offerings at the shrine. That's something. Honestly, at this point, the yak butter lamps burning in your honor at Pangboch Gompa might be the closest thing you'll ever get to a retirement plan.